Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to the Future History Project. This is Week 10, Part 2, and the last three stories this week are all by Isaac Asimov. The first one is from the collection Gold. This is a posthumous collection, and the story we read out of here was Kid Brother. I'll put all the details down below, when and where they were published. I do apologize. I didn't sort of check all that prior to the video. Actually, I can tell you when it was. 1990. So it was one of his very last stories, Kid Brother. I'll see if I can find out where it originally was published. I really like this story. These last three are great stories. This one, I won't go into too much detail, but there's a guy telling the story, and it's about it's a future, and it sounds like it could very well be in the future history, working into it. And they had one child, and he's applied for a license for another child, and they've been denied that. So it's population control, and there's too many people. And but they want another child, but they can't do it. And he thinks that it could be because, he's getting older and his wife's getting a bit older. But he bemoans the fact, but his wife says, okay, well, let's get a robot. And he doesn't really want that, but he finally does acquiesce, and they get the robot. And it's when their son Charlie is 10 years old, and the robot looks sort of humanish and looks about 15. And it's a dark story. I'll say that, because Charlie beats on, basically, and dominates and beats up the robot, and he takes it. And they sort of get fond of him, but they don't name him. They just call him Kid. They call the robot Kid. And he doesn't eat. Obviously, he doesn't eat with them. He's not treated very well. And at nighttime, he just sort of stands quietly in Charlie's bedroom in the corner. And as I say, it's dark. I won't sort of. Well, there's spoilers. I might as well do this. I might as well spoil this. It's like you find out through the thing that he's telling this story to someone, and you find out that it's the police he's telling this story to. And he says, you go, why are you investigating me? You should be investigating, real crimes and stuff like this. There was a fault of a machine or something that he says started the fire. Go and arrest, the manufacturers of this. He was away. And he got, while he was away, he got a message saying that his house was on fire. So by the time he gets there, the house is in ruins, but he sees his wife on the lawn. And he sees his son on the lawn. So he goes to his wife, and he says, well, how, he knows that because she got out, or she was actually on the lawn when the fire started, so she went back in to save her son. And he's talking to her, and she says, she had to go in, and she had to make a choice. She couldn't save them both. She had to make a choice. She had to save them both. So he finally looks at who he thinks is Charlie on the ground, and it's Kid. It's the robot, a bit mangled, but alive. And she says, "I had to choose. She saved the robot." He says, like a hunk of titanium, and not their son who died in the fire. And he says, and then he's telling the police, that, you say, like, I don't remember this, but he killed his wife. In a fit of rage there, he choked her and killed her. And that's where the story ends. It's a dark story. I love it. I love it. But it's a dark story. It's a dark. It's like Robbie in a sense, because they get the robot for a companion for their son, but it's also helps the parents as well, and it's accepted. But he just thinks it's all part of society, that they're getting rid of robots and that, and the robot is from U.S. Robots and Mechanical Men as well. Yeah, it's a wonderful story. And then we go on to another wonderful story from Robot Visions. And this is No Christmas, or Christmas Without Rodney. And I love the hardcover of this because it's got like a little robot at the beginning of every chapter. And it's got some lovely illustrations. That's Rodney, I believe, because he looks a little more primitive. And that's Rambo. Yes, Rambo the robot. And it's somebody else telling the story. It's first person. He's telling the story. Howard and his wife. Is it wife Grace? I think. Gracie. Yeah, Gracie is his wife. And she wants, because they have Rodney. It's an old model of a robot, but he doesn't want to get rid of Rodney. You know, they like Rodney, and she dotes on Gracie dotes on Rodney. You know, she adores Rodney, but she wants to give Rodney Christmas off, a holiday. So Howard's going, well, how do you do this? How do you give a robot time off? Well, he just doesn't need to do anything. And well, how are we going to get by? Because his son Delancey and his wife is coming, Hortense, is coming. And she says, well, they've got their robot, and their robot can do everything. So it comes, and like their robot is slick, up to date, and everything, and he doesn't really care for his daughter-in-law that much, Hortense. Because he believes that, her only redeeming factor is that she is helping his son climb the corporate ladder. That's the only redeeming factor. And he says, Delancey is my son, of course, but he's one of your upwardly mobile bottom line individuals. He married Hortense because she has excellent connections in business and can help him in the upward shove. At least I hope so, because if she has another virtue, I have never discovered it. So they showed up with their robot to Rambo 2 days before, and then but they bring his grandson Leroy, the Delancey and Hortense's son. And then he says, and his son says something, like a little, because the Rambo doesn't know how to do things other than push a button that's an automated system and do this. And Howard just can't figure out, why do you have a robot to push a button that automatically does this? So Rambo doesn't know how to make drinks. So they figure, well, they're going to have to get Rodney out to explain to him how to make drinks and this kind of thing. And little Leroy says, I don't want to have to look at Rodney's ugly puss. I bet he don't know how to do anything, and if he does, old Grandpa would get it all wrong anyway. And this is Howard's saying, in the narrative. It would have been nice, I thought, if I could be alone with little Leroy for 5 minutes and reason calmly with him, with a brick. But a mother's instinct told Hortense never to leave Leroy alone with any human being, whatever. I love that. I love it. And then it goes on that Leroy wants the presents before everything happened, before Christmas. He wants to open the presents, so he asks Rambo. Rambo doesn't know where they are, and then he asks Rodney, and he calls him stink pot or stink face. Is verbally abusing him, and wants to know where the presents are, but Rodney won't tell him. So he gets angry and kicks Rodney, but his shoe is off, so he hurts it. He breaks a toe by kicking him, and then he's saying that the robot had killed, and the robot had injured him, and so his mother comes running and wants Rodney destroyed, and all this kind of thing, and because he's run amok. But Rambo says no. Well, what happened? Even Rambo, has to tell the truth because the three laws of robotics, and he says that Leroy kicked him, but she still wants him destroyed. So they finally leave. The Rambo, Delancey, Hortense, and Leroy leave, and it's sort of the night that they leave. Rodney says, "Thank you, sir. I must admit that there are times these 2 days when I earnestly wish the laws of robotics did not exist." And Howard grinned and nodded, and then he started thinking, we got a robot wishing that the three laws of robotics didn't exist? What's going to happen? Like, whoa, that's potentially dangerous. The next step is to acting as if the three laws of robotics don't exist. So the very last lines are, "What do I do? What do I do?" It's just, I love it. I love these two stories. They're actually two stories. I'm pretty sure I've read Rodney before, and I vaguely remembered that when I was watching it, but I had not read Kid Brother. So I never read that one. So that was a pleasure. But now, definitely, No Christmas for Rodney, I think it's called. Yeah, No Christmas for Rodney is going to be a Christmas story I'm going to read every year. I love it. It's very short. It's very short. The last story, which is in Robot Dreams, that was Robot Visions. But it's anthologized in other ones. I can't find my copy at the moment of Robot Dreams, but it's anthologized in this book here, the It's Been a Good Life, Isaac Asimov, by Janet Jepson Asimov. And or she edited it and put together things. And the last story is The Last Question. And it's a story of multivac computer. And it starts out in May 21st, 2061. And there's two people. They asked the computer a question. Basically, I think it's something like, anyway, it's a question. A question, and the computer says, there's not enough information to compute. So it goes through. It's quite a short story, but it goes through millennia and millennia of time, millions and millions of years into the future, and the computer is growing. It grows, and it's still computing the question and trying to figure it out. And it gets to a point where there's entropy, and the universe is dying, but the computer still goes. And humans have long left their bodies, and the basically it says it says when let me see. I'm trying to remember what exactly the question is. But anyway, he keeps saying that there's insufficient data for a meaningful answer, and they kept saying collect additional data, and it gets to a point where the Earth the universe is entropy is shrinking down to nothing, and the humans bond with the computer. And it says the stars and galaxies died and snuffed out, and the space grew black after 10 trillion years of running down. One by one, man fused with AC. uh, each physical body losing its mental identity in a manner that was somehow not a loss but a gain. And it just continues, and they ask again. There is yet insufficient data. It says, is this the end? Um, can this chaos not be reversed into the universe once more? Can that be done? And insufficient data. And then all of a sudden, the computer says, "Let there be light," and there was light. I love this story. It's I've read it every so often. It's a very simplistic story in many ways, because it just goes through the millennia of these people asking the computer a question, and it's the last question that the computer has been working on for trillions of years. And it's not so much the story. What I find interesting is that, because you got this long expanse of time, and just it resonates in me every time I've read it in the past, for a long time after, thinking about the future, and far, far, far future, and thinking of all the things that would be happening on the periphery and outside of the story. And that's what gets me, because it stays, it sticks with me a long time. It sticks with me a long time. So it's a fabulous story, and the reason why it's in here is because Isaac Asimov said it was his favorite story, and that's why it's in here. And it was very popular in its time. He went to a lot of places, like he had actually read this before, but then they had other narrators, and they had it in a planetarium, so they'd show the birth of the universe, the coalescing of matter for stars, galaxies, planets, and then the entropy. And the narration of the story would be read with this, and it was extremely popular all over. I don't know if it got outside of the U.S., but it was extremely popular in the U.S. at the time, and also I think made him a lot of money. So he was happy on many fronts for that. But yeah, so there is part two and we ended on three fabulous stories, or I think are fabulous stories. And one now, after rereading the Christmas story with Rodney, No Christmas for, sorry, I can't keep the name straight for some reason. Christmas Without Rodney is going to be now a permanent Christmas story for me, because it takes 10 minutes to read. It's in here, it's only a few pages long. Page 315 it starts. There's the great photograph. So we got 6 pages. It's a 6-page story, but it is fabulous. And it's funny because, like, the narrator Howard says, he's changed the name in order to protect us. So yeah, and it's a bit of a change from the usual robot stories, where there's a problem with the 3 laws of robotics, especially the Susan Calvin ones. So these were sort of nice anecdotes for this. Not an anecdote, but anecdote. I can't speak. Sorry, I can't speak today. But anyway, it was a nice change. Let's put it that way. It was a nice change from the usual sort of robot stories. Even though with the Rodney story, there is the question of what do I do, that there could be a problem. But it's just fabulously told, fabulously told. Anyway, next week we'll be back to some non-Asimov stories, and do check out tomorrow's short post for week 11. We'll be reading 2 of the Robots and Aliens novels by William F. Wu for the first week. There's 6 of them, so we'll do. They're very short. They're very, very short. So we'll read 2 of those a week for the next 3 weeks. And then I think we're back into some Asimov short stories for a short bit. But there is a long haul here of non Asimov stories until we get into the Robots and Empire and so forth. But yeah, that's all to come. And if anybody's interested, do check out on Sunday, this coming Sunday, which is what's the date? I need to check the date. Sorry, I'm opening up my. That is the 13th at 7 p.m. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. There'll be a live with myself, Scott Bryant, and Scott Danielson, if they can still make it all the time, but at 7 p.m. UK time. And we'll be discussing in general, Isaac Asimov, the Future History Project, but more specifically, the trilogy, the iRobot Susan Calvin trilogy that we just finished last week. So do stop by and take a look at that video, or us talking about this. Ask any questions that you have about the Future History or Isaac Asimov, and we'll do our best to answer. Take care, BookTube. See you next time.